So what is Round Pictures?
Well, my name's Dave. I'm the director of Round Pictures. We're a film production company based here in Torquay. We do independent film of all sorts, so a little bit of everything.
Why did you decide to create Round Pictures?
Well, I was at film school actually. I've had a love of filmmaking since I was a little kid. Actually, got together with a bunch of friends at the age of 16, 17. Wrote a movie. It was a medieval romantic tragedy, so it had knights, castles, and fight scenes in the forest with horses and all this kind of stuff. But at the age of 17, you really don't know how to pull something like that off. But myself and a bunch of very good friends got together. We borrowed £4,000 from the bank, made movies, and went off to film school with the big dreams of learning everything. And after about 6 months of that, it wasn't really happening for me. They weren't teaching in the way that I was expecting. I'm a really big fan of kind of self-motivated learning, so took off into the sunset on a motorbike with my wife, actually. Well, she wasn't my wife at the time. She was just a pretty girl from college, but took off and started the film company, and it's been an amazing journey since then. That was 7 years ago.
You're making the film Underwater Realm. For those who don't know, what is it all about?
Well, The Underwater Realm is a series of 5 2-minute short films, and they're kind of like trailers for a set of feature films that we want to make. They're set entirely underwater. So the 5 short films we're making at the moment are telling the stories of the 5 times that humanity has come into contact with a race of people living beneath the ocean. So it's really, really exciting. We go back from the present day with a couple scuba diving, honeymooning in the Red Sea, back through 1942 in World War II, 1588 in the Spanish Armada, 1208 medieval Britain, all the way back to 149 BC and Roman times. And we see those people in those periods of history ending up interacting with this race of people who are wandering the ocean floor and have been for thousands of years. So it's a really, really exciting project. And the goal is that by the time these projects are finished in September 2012, they're going to go online. They're going to be shown around the world in cinemas where we take them to show our fans. And hopefully will be picked up by a movie studio. And we'll move on to producing a trilogy of feature films set in that same universe. Imagine like Gladiator, Avatar, but underwater.
You gained funding for the Kickstarter project. How did you find the process, and what advice can you give to someone?
Wow, good question. So we already had some funding for the project that we actually won from a national competition about this time last year. But because of the way the project snowballed, because of some of the great people that got involved, we realised after getting about 2/3 of the way through that budget that we were going to need a bigger budget and a bigger scope to really do the project justice. So we turned to Kickstarter, crowdfunding. Now, crowdfunding, it's been around for a while in a number of different formats, but the Kickstarter thing has really kicked off in the last 18 months. So we opted for a Kickstarter project, especially with the Film Council being shut down in this country and public funding to the arts being much, much more difficult to come by. And the kind of commercial nature of what we're trying to do a big blockbuster movie. We thought Kickstarter is going to be the way forward. And it's a lot of hard work, I'll be honest with you. It's for the month that you run your Kickstarter campaign, you have to hit your target by your deadline or you don't see any of the money. And it is a full-time job. I mean, it was a full-time job for 3 or 4 of us here in the studio all the way through that month, just promoting using social media and using marketing and just even speaking to people and writing blog articles, blog entries for people, creating content to promote the project. For example, coming up with new ideas of ways that we could reward people for backing the project, and then producing those products and showing them to the world, and just a huge, huge marketing journey for that month. But really, really exciting nonetheless. We went with a goal over December 2011 moving into 2012. We had 30 days to raise $60,000 US, so $2,000 every single day we had to hit over Christmas and over New Year. So it was a very, very tall order. Especially our blog at the time had an average view of 250 to 300 people per week watching it, so we had a very small audience. And actually we completely destroyed that target. I mean, we hit the 60k mark by Boxing Day, and we then had another week to produce over and above what we'd intended, and actually just the money kept coming in. People just got so inspired and enthralled by the project that they wanted to be a part of it, and we ended up raising $101,610 in 60 days. So it was pretty crazy. The graph kind of went like this at the end. So very, very exciting. But the main thing for that, if you're doing any form of crowdfunding, my number one piece of advice is give things to people. They are not just going to turn up. I mean, they do, but by and large, people aren't just going to browse through the internet and go, I've got $500 I want to get rid of. Where can I put it? Oh, here, bang. You've got to make people want to get involved. You've got to offer them things that are genuinely valuable to them and excite them. It's a very unique project, and I think that's owing to why we did so well through Kickstarter.
You're shooting the film in 3D. What technical challenge did you face with that as a concept?
So we're filming on the same cameras that they're shooting The Hobbit, they're shooting Avatar 2, they're shooting the new Alien movie Prometheus on these cameras. They are world-class cinema cameras that shoot in, I mean, if you imagine HD is this sort of size, we're filming 5K images. They're amazing cameras, but as a result, there's no underwater housings for them. We ended up using some of the prototypes, the first ones that exist on the planet. And added to that, and the lighting and the diving, when you then talk about 3D, you've got two cameras, and it's not as simple as taking two cameras in two housings. They've got to be, well, even closer than butt up against each other. They actually need to be perpendicular to each other and filming through a 45-degree beam splitter mirror, so that they can come in so the lenses are as close as your human eyes. So it's a hell of a challenge to get two cameras like this in a housing underwater and then dive and make a film with it. So we'll just see what happens, I guess.
What equipment do you generally use, and what would you suggest to people avoid?
Oh, it's a good question. I would avoid relying on the kit. I don't mean that in terms of expecting it to break, but the kit isn't going to make your stuff look good. I would genuinely, hand on heart, would rather shoot with one of these DSLR, a very, very cheap camera, than shoot on the Epic if it meant that I could light and stage a scene properly. The camera, the lights, it's not going to make it look good for you. It's all about what you do with it. It's far easier to create something that looks good with a cheap camera and some desk lamps than with a very expensive camera and no lights at all. So we use all kinds of stuff. We use DSLRs, which are digital single lens reflectors, or HD stills cameras effectively. Wonderful, wonderful bits of kit. But we also use more expensive kit. We use everything up to the Red Epic workflow. The thing to take into account there is don't bite off more than you can chew in terms of workflow. Don't go for an incredibly expensive and top-end camera and then get it home to your laptop and wonder why you can't edit the footage anymore. So don't be in a hurry to get the best camera. Don't be in a hurry to buy all this expensive kit. You really, whatever stage you're at, you can learn more with what you've already got. There is always a time to upgrade, but we use the Adobe Master Collection for our post-production. So that's editing, sound design, visual effects, compositing, and Photoshop, DVD authoring, all this kind of stuff. So it's a really, really powerful suite, and you can move data between all of those applications without rendering, which is a really, really big thing. It's about not having to render your projects until the opportune moment. So keeping it as kind of free data as long as is possible. So Adobe's great for that, for anybody that's learning, and they do some great deals for students and that kind of stuff as well, and you get certain discounts for people working for the government and all this kind of stuff. So that's great. DSLRs, you can walk into a Jessop's anywhere in the country, and for about 600 quid you can get yourself a 550D or a T2i Rebel or a 600D. Fantastic, fantastic cameras that will teach you an awful lot about creating cinematic images, far more so than going to Argos and spending the sort of same money on a camcorder. So you get interchangeable lenses, and it teaches you about photography. Learn photography. You know, it's a skill everybody should have. It's like poetry but with pictures, and in order to work in this game, you have to understand how to tell pictures with stories. Tell stories with pictures.
Are there any negatives to the industry that people need to be aware of?
Oh, there's 1,000. You generally come across negatives in the industry, I think, when you're expecting somebody to give you something. I guess the number one piece of advice is to not sit around and wait for somebody to give you permission to make a film. If you want to make a film, go and make a film. It doesn't matter if it doesn't look amazing. It doesn't matter if it doesn't make sense, because it never will the first time. And you keep going again and again and again. Learn as much as you can. There's just no excuse not to be able to do that these days. The equipment is so cheap and the knowledge is so freely available on the internet that you can self-teach and you can go out and learn and experiment on the job. And the worst thing you could possibly do is say, oh, I'm a writer, and write a script, and then hope that somebody's going to call you up and ask you to write something for them. It's not going to happen. You've got to put yourself out there and you've got to do the work. Otherwise, A, it'll never get done, and B, you will never progress to the point where you can start attracting other people towards you. So just get out and do it.
How long has the process taken to get to this point?
And so I guess a big part of the journey started in 2008, where we made a film called Zombies. So we spent 6 months in pre-production from the beginning of 2008 up to about June, and then took ourselves up to Dartmoor with about 50 or 60 volunteers and a load of money that was borrowed, ill-advisedly borrowed, and we made a 45-minute action romp, like just a very, very pastiche action B-movie. Involving zombies and Dartmoor, and we had motorbike chases and we had airstrikes and all this kind of stuff, and that really, I think, it was a way of kind of cutting our teeth at the age of 21, kind of cutting your teeth in filmmaking and learning all those lessons the hard way, and also getting out the other end of it with a movie that you're proud of. I mean, it went up on YouTube 6 months ago. It's just passed, what's the latest count, Shaz? I think we're about 140,000 views. It's going to be coming out on DVD actually in the UK at the end of March. So that gelled us together as a team. It attracted a number of other fantastically talented people into the team, and it's what gave us the confidence and the skill sets to be able to go on and start thinking about the underwater realm.
What other help do you need?
What the help do we need? Psychological help, I think, for being crazy enough to be in this industry. Artists. I think everybody has something they can bring to this project, and I think that's kind of what's defined this project, especially over the last 6 weeks of having run the Kickstarter campaign and had some truly amazing people who we admire get in touch, donate to the project, and help us out with the project. We always have space for people, so if anybody out there thinks that there is a skill set that they can bring, be it anything from IT to media work to graphic design to concept art to costume design, there is a way, most likely there is a way we can work together. So get in touch through the blog. We're at theunderwaterrealm.com. You can just send a message. It will come straight through to all of us. There is a bit of a backlog at the moment, so we might not get back to you for a little while, because we had an awful lot of people get in touch during the month of December, as I'm sure you can imagine. But yeah, absolutely, get in touch and let's see if we can do something. If you're the right sort of person, you think this is the sort of thing for you, then speak to us.
How did you get access to Pinewood and Shepperton Studios?
Good question. It's a trade secret. We went to Cannes Film Festival, which is just a whole nother world. I mean, it's amazing place. And actually, while we were out there, we made contact with a few individuals from the Pinewood group and asked the question. That got us into Shepperton Studios, which was a really amazing experience, actually. Really amazing experience.
What are the highs of the project so far?
Wow. At the beginning of the year, we actually entered a national competition that had been run by Raindance Film Festival. The pitch was to create a 2-minute film that showed how you and your friends took it to the max. It was being sponsored by Pepsi. And a lot of people thought, well, max, that means like extreme sports. That means what do we do that's extreme and crazy? And actually for us, it had completely different connotations. Taking it to the max, for all of us, meant maxing out your credit cards. And so we produced a 2-minute kind of a love letter to independent filmmaking, all about getting together with your friends with a lot of passion and not very much money and producing some art. So we produced a 2-minute film that actually then went on to win that national competition. In fact, it opened Raindance Film Festival in central London this year, which was a great honour, seeing that up on screen with so many great people having organised the festival. And so that was a huge high point, winning that competition, because that's what sparked the underwater realm. It was that prize money that allowed us to get moving, get scuba diving, and get producing everything that we've been doing for the last year. So that was a great high point. Shepperton, again, a shoot in Shepperton Studios was an amazing high point. We did a great shoot with the Epic camera over in Tintagel in Cornwall. Had some great talent there as well, great actors, I should say, working in front of camera, and a great crew behind camera. It was just a really solid shoot. I guess, though, I mean, nothing's going to beat that Kickstarter campaign. We had high points, we had low points, but at the end, we hit $90,000 in the last 4 hours, and then in the last 30 minutes we hit $100,000, and it was a pretty crazy party. It was a very high point. Just being backed by some amazing people. I mean, Eric Kessler of Kessler Cranes backed us and sent a great sum of money through the internet. The head of TED, the I don't know if you've heard of TED. Yeah, well, the head of TED, or the curator of TED, I should say, sent us a fair old chunk of money and tweeted about us to 1.3 million people, and then some other amazing people. Sylvia Earle, Time Magazine's first hero of the Earth. Just one of the hugest, the most amazing marine biology and diving authorities in the world. Ros Savage, the first woman to row solo across the Atlantic, the Pacific, the Indian Ocean. Just amazing, inspiring people getting involved, and then hitting that 100 grand mark. It made December pretty special, I can tell you.
What are the lows of the project so far?
Well, flying people out from the States with proprietary camera gear and camera housings, and then finding out that those housings actually leak. That was a pretty low point. There was also a separate shoot where we managed to actually kill one of the cameras, which was quite a scary day. There was quite a lot of salt water in the air, and the camera stopped working, so that wasn't too cool. There was also a shoot that was supposed to take place in a local harbour, but unfortunately a southwesterly huge weather front came in and it turned it from a serene, peaceful, wonderful visibility, lovely dive site, into a meat grinder. It was awful. You couldn't see a hand in front of your face, and it was horribly dangerous, so we had to cancel that dive and ended up in a very cold quarry instead. So we've had our fair share of low points, but overall it's about taking it on the chin, and taking the good with the bad and just pushing on through, enjoying the journey and not just thinking about the destination.
You made the tutorials such as the flow light and the lighting rig. What are your plans for that in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, we're all about sharing what we learn. This is the stuff that we're sharing is stuff that we've only learned on the job. So we're absolutely happy to share all of that information. As you say, we've done lighting tutorials on Philip Bloom's website. They've been seen collectively by well over 100,000 people now, and we're getting great response from that. We're doing a masterclass for people that backed the Kickstarter project. We've done the free plans, the lights that are set next to you here. You can go down to your local DIY store and knock those up for about £60, and they're perfectly good enough to start thinking about how to light and to light professionally. I mean, we use these all the time. And then, as you say, yeah, we've done the LED lights, which are the submersible lights that are more expensive but industry standard, and usable underwater, which is important for us. But in addition to that, I mean, just today I've been planning a data center, which together with a colleague who's incredibly knowledgeable about this sort of thing, and we've looked at a data storage solution which will allow us here in the studio to all be accessing a huge amount of shared network space for all of our footage that will operate far faster than internal hard drives, using some really high-tech kit. And if we were to walk into a store or phone up HP and say, hey, build this for us, it would cost 70 grand, and we're building something that does exactly the same job at the same speed for 3 grand. And knowledge like that, you can't keep it to yourself. I mean, there's going to be a blog about what we do to back up data, how we move data around and make sure that it's always safe and always backed up. As well as pre-visualization. We're working on previs at the moment, using some 3D software, doing motion capture with an Xbox Kinect plugged into a PC, so that we can control the movements of little CG characters and plan our movie out, almost like a 3D storyboard. So all of that's going up on the blog so that people can see it, and they can either use that information or just get inspired by the fact that there are people out here doing it, and inspiring people to get off their arse and do it too.
Can you explain the lighting rig?
So the LED lights we actually designed to combat the problem of taking light underwater with us. Because water is so much denser than air, as soon as the light hits it, it starts to slow down. And what happens, first of all, is that all the red light slows down and disappears. And all you're left with is blue light, which is why we think underwater is blue. But that's a real problem for us filming, because if you take a person down to 5-6 meters and try and film them, they don't look like a person anymore. They look like a different shade of bluey cyan. Which is quite unattractive. So what we try and do is reintroduce light underwater. So we set about trying to figure out how we could take a light and actually waterproof it and ruggedize it, and it needed to be a soft light as well. It needed to be like a big light source that was going to create a flattering light. So we started looking into all these different things, and we ended up with an LED batten, which was quite an ergonomic shape. It's like it's a 4-foot tube, which we could then seal inside PVC. and rigged together to run off a battery. The batteries in Pelly cases, we can take them underwater with us as well, and you've got a fully submersible lighting system that's completely dimmable, it's solid state, you can kick it around, and it's just a wonderful system.
What is coming up for you?
What's coming up next? Well, the underwater realm is dominating our horizon until September, October, when the project is finished, and then we hope for a number of years after that as we work towards the features. But at the same time, we've got a slate of other feature films that are being put together that we're going to look for investment for at a later date. We've also got the commercial side of what we do. So as well as doing all these passion projects, which we do completely voluntary, and it's very, very important that nobody gets paid, including us, because they're non-profit, they're just purely for the love of the art and the development of the art. But we still need to pay rent, so I work as a commercial film director. We do promos for resorts, hotels and resorts around the world, where we'll fly out and we'll film a romantic vignette, almost like a 2 to 3 minute trailer for that property. But we also do videos for businesses. Local businesses will call us up, and people generally call us, rather than the other way around, they generally call us up and say, look, we want something that's a little bit above the average video. We don't just want some kind of infomercial where somebody's going to pan a video around a room and talk over the top of it. We create very emotional narrative pieces. That's kind of our unique standpoint, coming from a film background rather than a video background. You know, I don't mean the distinction to be in terms of celluloid or digital information, but there's a lot of people that will just go out and point a camera to record information. We don't do that. We capture the moments rather than documenting them. So that's why people call us. So that's also kind of fitting in around the underwater stuff. You can get in touch through theunderwaterrealm.com, whatever you want to do. We also run a website, realm-pictures.com. It's more of a shop window, really. It's just some examples of our previous work. So if you want to see what we're about, realm-pictures.com. That's realm as in Knights of the Realm, because we are British filmmakers through and through, and very, very proud of the British film industry. So realm-pictures as in movies.com, or you can get in touch through the Underwater Realm blog.
So thank you very much.
Great, it's been good to see you.